Good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear us. We're going to start this session about the call for proposals on scientific advice for fisheries, funded under the EMFAF, so the European Maritime, Fisheries and Aquaculture Fund. So it's a great pleasure to have you all with us today. You can join at Slido. Now you see the hashtag EMFAF 2025 fisheries. So we have a few questions for you for a quick warm-up to see where you come from which country, and also from which type of institutions. So if you can start answering, we will see also if everything works on your end. Okay, so I think we have a number of people joining already from Ireland, the Netherlands, Belgium, Denmark. It's a very good start. So what I would like to say is that today we will take questions via Slido. So using this hashtag, we will have a dedicated session at the end of the session for Q&As, and we will also take a couple of questions after each presentations. At the end of the session, we will also have a satisfaction survey that we will invite you to fill out. This is very important to improve our services and to make sure we adapt to your needs as applicants. So my name is Charlotte Jago. I'm a head of sector in CINEA Unit D3, which is the Sustainable Blue Economy Unit, and we are managing EMFAF actions on behalf of the Commission, on behalf of DG Mare, DG Maritime Affairs and Fisheries. And you can see here on the screen Adolfo Merino from DG Mare is from the Unit C3, which is dealing with scientific advice and data collection. And Adolfo will provide us some information on the policy background of the call, as well as on the objectives of the call and the expected impacts. Then I will pass the floor to Mrs. Blanca Garcia Alvarez from Unit D3 in CINEA, who will present the conditions to fulfill to apply for the call for proposals. For example, the eligibility criteria, the award criteria. Then I will pass the floor to Mrs. Rocio Suarez Jimenez, who will provide you with tips and guidance about how to write a successful proposal. And finally, we will finish the round of presentation with Mrs. Marika Unidoro from the Research Executive Agency. Marika works in the Central Validation Service, and she will help you for your first step to apply to the call for proposals. So she will tell you how to register your organization in the funding and tender portal. So after this round of presentation, I will give you a very brief introduction to CINEA. So CINEA is the European Climate, Infrastructure, Environment Executive Agency. It is managing 7 programs for a budget of 65 billion euros, and it is known as the Green Deal Agency. So we implement projects ranging from rail infrastructures and energy infrastructures to nature protection with the LIFE program, to climate research with the Horizon Europe program. And the focus of today will be on the European Maritime, Fisheries and Aquaculture Fund, which is the program we are implementing in Unit D3 and which is the topic of the day. So we're presenting today a call for proposals for 2.6 million euros. The call for proposals opened last week on the 14th of November, and it will close on the 20th February 2025. So now I can say a few words about EMFAF. As you may know, EMFAF is mostly managed by member states. So 87% of the fund is managed by member states. This is called shared management, and this is maybe the part with which you're most familiar. But a small part, about 13% of the budget, is managed by the European Commission and other institutions, and this is the remit of this call for proposals. So we are here implementing directly part of the budget of the EMFAF as CINEA. So the budget is delegated to CINEA. It's about a bit less than 300 million that is delegated to CINEA for the period 2021-2027. You can see here this slide because this year we're celebrating the 10 years of the delegation of EMFF and EMFAF to executive agencies. And you can see here the type of actions we've been funding. You can see that scientific advice for fisheries has been there from the beginning. Of course, it's a very important part of the EMFF and EMFAF funding. And traditionally, so far, scientific advice has been funded in our program through contract and studies. But more recently, since last year, we are also funding grants through projects, and this is exactly the topic of our day today. So this is the second call for proposals we're launching for scientific advice for fisheries to improve management decisions and conservation of fisheries in support to the Common Fisheries Policy. So without further ado, I will pass the floor to Adolfo Merino to give you some information on the policy background of the call, the context, objectives. Adolfo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Charlotte, and thank you to all attendants for being there. It's quite reassuring to see their interest of the other side, so it's much appreciated. I would like to start thanking also all CINEA colleagues and all CINEA teams for allowing the preparation of this info day and for all the work that has been already done in launching this call for proposal, and in the work in advance. Thank you for all the work that is ahead on the evaluations and preparation of the grants, and I know that it is something very challenging, but we have a very good experience cooperating, and I'm very, very proud of that. I'm very sure that it will be a success. So what I'm going to tell you is a little bit what is the policy background, the policy context, why we are launching this call, why do we think it's important. And with this background, my intention is basically to help you and to guide you to solve this question that you probably have in your mind. If maybe it's this idea that I have or that my laboratory have relevant for this call, or should I use this is an opportunity really to funding what I have in my mind or not. But in addition, we will have later, as Charlotte has said, the possibility of giving some questions and answers. And if you think that I'm missing something, please feel free to flag that later. So the first thing is obvious. So scientific advice is a must. Is a must for the Common Fisheries Policy, and is a must for a good implementation of fisheries management and conservation of measures. So basically, is one of the good policy-making principles that it is reflected in our Common Fisheries Policy, meaning that we must take the best available scientific advice as a basis for defining the management measures. And this is something that has been implemented for years, and it is nothing new. We are normally, in the Commission, we are looking for the advice provided by several advisory bodies. Most probably you are very familiar with most of them. Just to mention the International Council for the Exploration of the Seas, the ICES, the Scientific and Technical and Economic Committee for Fisheries, STCF, the Science in the International Forum, it's the Science Committees and the Regional Fisheries Management Organizations, and most of the European labs that are also working there. Because in fact, those advisory bodies relies on the existing scientific knowledge, and this scientific knowledge is usually provided by national fisheries research institutes. So both the advisory bodies and the institutes, we have noticed that there are some limitations in terms of capacity, in terms of resources, and so sometimes it's very difficult for all the scientific community to improve the existing knowledge and also to address the growing demand of new topics under scientific advice that we are facing. So basically, what we want is improving the scientific knowledge as a basis to improve the advice that we receive and which is available. And we want to support this improve thanks to the possibilities that the European Maritime and Fisheries Fund and Aquaculture Fund is providing, which has been, as already mentioned by Charlotte, has been already used last year and has proven to be a very successful tool. So the main two reasons, the main two reasons for launching this call is first to support the demand of a process which is dynamic. So the scientific knowledge is a continuous process. It's evolving all the time, and we need to be sure that we keep abreast. And the second thing is just to try to cover or even to support this challenge that we have, that I said before, regarding the lack of capacity. Sometimes it's human, sometimes it's financial, of the EU labs to attend this increasing needs, and the difficulties to add new topics to the agendas or the work plan that I know that they are already overloaded. So the EU Fisheries Research Institutes, we have been noticing the last year that they give priority to the big projects that ensure funding and resources for the lab for longer periods. I'm talking about the Horizon Europe, Horizon 2020 in the past, the framework contract which gives you the possibility to work and research during 5-4 years and with an amount of money that allows you to have some staff there for timing. Given to this priority, which is absolutely logical, we have seen that some of the what we call small projects, small actions that could bring a lot of added value or important push to fisheries knowledge are kept aside, and that's exactly what we want to cover with this call. So basically, we are thinking about a lot of samples that you can have in European labs, samples that have been collected, but they're sleeping in a fridge because there is no possibility, no human resources, or even no time to do that. We are thinking on data that we have a lot of information, environmental, biological, that we cannot use because we have not the time to prepare this data and to make them available to feed a model, for example, or we don't have time to adapt the models that we are using because simply we don't have time or we don't have people for that. So that could be an opportunity also to have some young people working on those things during a period of time, but with the objective of diversify the knowledge, but also to keep, develop, and maintain some of this knowledge and the capacity to develop that knowledge within our institutes. So basically, what we want is to support those projects to cover gaps, but for the benefit of the whole scientific community. That is important. We are not trying to support things that are going to be for the glory of one person making a paper, a publication, which of course it will be very welcome because communication is quite important. But we want you applicants go one step forward and try to go for involving other scientists and try to create networks and work all together. So as Charlotte has said, traditionally EMFAF has been used for, under direct mention, has been used for studies and services contracts, which means that normally it was the Commission who asked or identify the needs and give those needs to the scientific community to reply them. What we tried last year with this approach was absolutely the contrary. It's just to give the possibility to give the opportunity to the scientists to say what they consider is also relevant or what can be improved in the scientific advice. Of course, still, with the frame we are moving, we have our limitations in terms of budget, in terms of timing, and we cannot compete with the big projects of research and innovation. But what we really want is to give the opportunity to identify the needs, to put on the table, and to let us know after evaluation, of course, if they fit to the priorities that we will see later, to see what we can do to support as much as possible. So other important thing for us is also the timing. Normally the research projects are quite long, because you need to test, to draft, and then to evaluate, and we go for 4 or 5 years. As you probably know, fisheries management is a more immediate process, meaning that we don't have, most of the time, we don't have time to wait 4 or 5 years to see, for example, what is the impact of our fishing activities in some ecosystems, or on the contrary, what is the impact of other human activities, non-fishing, on our aquatic resources and on the fishing activities. So those kind of things are going quick, and we are also trying to solve these midterm responses, midterm answers to these questions. So in other words, what we are looking is for applied science to fisheries management, and I want to underline 2 things: applied and fisheries. Applied in the sense that we are not looking for fundamental research, which is very useful, is the basis for everything. But what we really wanted is to cover small gaps and to go for what we can apply directly in the next months, years. And fisheries is also just to make target that what we need is knowledge applicable to fisheries management. I know that sometimes we cannot assume that in an isolated way. Of course, environmental knowledge is also applied to fisheries management. Behavior, I don't know, a lot of things are affecting, but be sure that it has to be directly applicable, not to create a twisting justification to say, okay, what I'm doing will be applicable to fisheries, maybe if someone else is doing the correct things. We don't want to create new structures for scientific advice. What we want is that those knowledge integrates in what is already existing there. So it's also important to flag that it is not our objective to put on the market new products. I know that there are other brilliant calls launched by our colleagues here in CINEA that has been helping and will help in the future, I hope, to cover those gaps. We cannot compete, as I say, with the big innovation and research. And what we try is knowledge which is useful for everything and directly applicable. Just to give you an example, I can have an idea to develop a device that will be absolutely helpful if we use in all the fishing gears, but we don't have the capacity to put us on all the fishing gears. So it's something that has to be more realistic and short term. And we thought, thinking that the impact of your project will consider some kind of regulation applying everyone or obliging everyone to apply the results. So as you have seen in the screen, last year we launched this call. It was the first time. I must say that I'm very, very happy with the reply we got from the applicants, from you and from your colleagues. Overall, I get the idea was very well caught. So meaning that we had a very difficult evaluation because we got very, very important and interesting topics. Some of them even out of our scope, but they open windows, and some of them anticipate what happened a few months later in terms of negotiations, for example, or in terms of demands for knowledge from the management side. The most important thing I want to say, well, here there were six projects that started in June this year. They will be running for 2 years. And the most important thing for me is that they have created a lot of expectations, meaning that we know that there are already working groups in different forums that are waiting for this for the results of those projects. And this is exactly what we want. Not that people wait for that, but that people really use what we are doing. So I really invite you to follow the link to have more information about the already projects ongoing. Here you can only see 4 of them. It was because of the time and not to make that, but it's also a test, or an indication of the big diversity of things that you can find them, from genomic to diadronomous species to long-distance tropical tuna, or even just very specific in a model in a very specific area of the sea basins. So we are open to all those things, and this is exactly what we want.
Thank you very much, Adolfo. You'll continue in a minute with the next part of the presentation, which will be about the call. Just before, let me remind you that you can at any time join us on Slido using the hashtag EMFAF 2025 fisheries. We have already one question, which is about whether we will circulate the presentation of today. Yes, the presentation will be put on the call page of CINEA, and also to remind you that this session is recorded, and there will be also a link available in the next few days for you to rewatch the info day. So thanks, Adolfo. Applied fisheries, improve, integrate, strengthen. So voila, we have a few keywords here. So I can pass the floor now to you again for the objectives of the call and the expected impacts. So thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. I'm sorry for speaking too much today. So basically, well, after the introduction I've already made about the background on why we are launching, the objective is absolutely clear. So I must underline that all what I'm going to tell now in this presentation, in the first part of the presentation that my colleague Blanca will continue afterwards, everything is in the call document that you have access to it, and that I really recommend you to deeply read and to analyze every single note, every single word there, because I guess it's quite relevant and it's a lot of information which is key for a successful application. So the objective is clear. So what we want is develop and improve the scientific knowledge that is needed to provide a scientific advice for fisheries management under the European Union Common Fisheries Policy. From this objective, as I said before, we want to highlight the practical in terms of its integration, and we want also to apply to put the weight on the wording policy-oriented fishery, more than in a theoretical development of other things. So, as you can imagine, under fisheries science, there is a very huge number of them that can be covered. We have chosen some of them as a priorities, and basically what we want you take as a priority is something that can be reinforced, the policy-oriented fisheries science, or better use of collected scientific data, to improve the cooperation between scientists and fisheries sector, and I will also say fisheries managers, and also, as I say at the beginning, to contribute to develop and maintain some relevant expertise in European labs to be able to develop and to update the needed advice for the fisheries management. So there are 11 themes in section 2 of the call document. In reality, there are 9 plus 2. I will explain that a bit later. So it's worth to mention that, of course, you can have an idea and a project that could fall under more than one of those themes. And if it is the case, you must really indicate in your proposal what are the themes that you will contribute to. Those themes are, well, again, I don't know if you can read it, probably it's very small for you. I can see nothing, I'm a bit myopic, but anyway, you can find them in the call documents, and those are, for example, improving or update the available scientific knowledge. As it is did, we can see that this is the one which is englobing all the rest. So it's a very, very general theme, and it's a very open one, just to invite you not to be shy and try to put your ideas there. Other things could be adapt the scientific advice to the upcoming challenges that are affecting fisheries management. For example, climate change, for example, changes in ecosystem, increasing diversity of human activities at sea. Other thing could be increased understanding on fisheries stock structures, and I'm talking about stock populations, life history, geographical, food webs, multi-species interactions. Other thing could be strengthen or further strengthen scientific knowledge to assess what is the impact of the fishing activities on the structure of the ecosystem, structure, function, dynamics, and the associated services of those ecosystem services. Also to increase the understanding and operationalization of an ecosystem approach to fisheries management. This is important. You can further develop capacity to provide advice using environmental, socioeconomic information through qualitative, semi-qualitative, or quantitative analysis. You can. Other thing could be just what I say: the impact of fisheries on vulnerable marine and sensitive species, mammals, sharks. To identify biological and sensitive areas, hotspots, bycatch areas, identify some mitigation measures to monitor and to control mortalities and other suitable management measures for specific areas that will be based on scientific knowledge that you have. Other thing could be just the impact of other human activities on the stocks, ecosystems, and also on fishing activities. So sometimes it's not just to say, okay, this is impacting us, but we need to measure that. We need to have some kind of scientific evidence of what is going there, and it could be a very interesting thing to develop. You can focus on optimize the collection and use of scientific data and samples that you already have. It can be collected, for example, under the data collection framework or under any other data collection that you can have in your member state. Here, I would like to underline already from the very beginning that it is important to avoid double funding, meaning that things that can be already covered or has been already covered, for example, for the data collection framework, cannot be eligible to be funded under this scope in addition to that. So what we try is just to go one extra mile and not to duplicate efforts and not to put on the shoes of somebody else which is doing things very well. So we can also, one thing could be improve the methodological aspects. So for example, in the way that in which we are defining samplings or designing our sampling, the data collection, the data management, what we do with that, any method that you can have in your mind that you consider that could benefit the scientific advisory process. And I say that because in addition, the 9+2, now I'm going to the 2, because in addition to the theme that you have there, you can choose any of those or several of them, it is important that you may contribute at least of one of those two. You must support the EU scientific community in developing and maintaining relevant expertise. Well, this is almost very obvious and inherent for everything, but bear in mind that we are using EMFAF money. This is not exactly a research budget which can other countries be used. This is just more limited for EU member states, and we really want to be used to keep this expertise in-house. And the second thing that you have to be doing well is that we need to support the involvement of policy stakeholders, citizens in the provision of fishery data. You have to support, or you should propose inter and transdisciplinary production, different scientific advice. This is very important, just not to be focused on biology, environment, but also oceanography or other things. This is kind of multidisciplinary things that we really need. And the most important thing, the communication and dissemination of scientific results. So it's up to you to decide what are you going to do with your results, but we really encourage that one of the must should be to be sure that those things are discussed at least in some different forums that are relevant for that. So those are very, the basic message is we need to share and to cooperate. I'm going a bit quicker now, maybe. So you can wonder, what are the kind of activities that can be included in this project? Well, there is a big amount of them, so you can imagine that the activities under that, it's impossible to list all of them. So what we have done in the call document is we have included a matter of examples to guide you, and that we want to insist that it is just an example, and this is not it is a non-exhaustive list. And among those examples, you can find, for example, developing methodologies for stock identification, definition, evaluation, refining geographical distributions assessment. In modeling, you can go for development, improvement, operationalizing, testing, validating models, adding, for example, geographical parameters to your model, adding age structures to your model, making them adjusting to multi-species interactions. You can, as I mentioned, you can go for the samples of data, but beyond what has been already the scope of the national data collection programs. You can harmonize or improve protocols of data collection, or handling data, or how to manage them. You can develop trials, surveys, some monitoring methods, collection of data, risk assessment. You can be more focused on metadata, data validation, data preparation to fit models or to obtain other kind of results or analysis. You can expand existing database or create a new one and link them with other existing initiatives. Just to improve the data quality and service scientific advice. And you can develop new advice formats or even frequencies. As you see, we are very, very open to listen to you, and we really encourage to be creative, but at the same time to be realistic of what we can do with the budget limitation, time limitation, and the needs that we are having. And you can see with the current movement, for example, under the CFP revision or under the biodiversity strategy or all those things that are around. So activities, of course, can contribute to more than one themes. In addition to the actions, it's important that you include considering networking activities between scientists, between industry, and between managers. For example, you can go for multidisciplinary analysis, organization of workshops, benchmarks, networking of existing samplings. The reason for that is to ensure that the knowledge we are gaining is shared and is going to be used for the scientific community, not just for one lab or for one special group of people. The results, I guess I'm taking more time than expected, sorry for that. So for the expected results, as mentioned before, we expect to improve the knowledge available for the provision of scientific advice, and we expect to integrate those results in the scientific advisory process, management process. So applicants must describe in your proposals what are the concrete and measurable results, how it is expected that those results will be integrated in the scientific advice for fisheries process, and the expected, what are your expected impact, and even when relevant, if you consider that those impacts could be transferred to other regions or other stocks or other fisheries. You should also describe, it's important that you describe in your applications what is the main target forum in which you consider your results should be presented. For example, you can present them in existing working groups for scientific bodies, or they can be discussed at benchmark meetings, or you can organize some kind of training with other scientists to show your results and to show them how to apply the new model that you are developing. So the results is important that will be measured through the relevant EMFAF results indicator that you will find also in the call document. Just to facilitate that, it is important that those results must be presented in a format that it is comparable to the relevant indicators that were listed in the call. You will see that in the call and also in the annex of the EMFAF regulation, there are a lot of indicators. Most of them probably are not relevant to you. So please at least take the ones that you consider that are relevant for you and try to be imaginative, but at the same time make something that can be useful and harmonized in order to compare things and not to be in a difficult position of comparing personal appeals. I prefer to stop there and just to leave more place for my colleagues and then questions afterwards. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Adolfo, for these insights into the rationale, the objective and expected impacts of the call for proposals. Now I will give the floor to Blanca, who's a project advisor in the Unit D3, as I said in the beginning, and Blanca will provide you information. Really, we are diving deep in the call now into the conditions, the eligibility, etc., and we will take questions at the end of this presentation. So, Blanca, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Charlotte, and thank you, Adolfo, for the presentation of the specific things that are going to be funded. Then, who can apply? So this is the eligibility conditions. As you can see, the map, I think, is very clear. It's really, this call is really focused on the European Union, member states. That includes as well, of course, the outermost regions. Be careful with other countries which are part of the European Union and that are part of the Euro, but countries, but they are not European Union. So, but remember, the European member states all can apply. This means beneficiary and affiliate entities. Those are the beneficiaries. Be careful with the terminology that you are going to use and how you are going to apply for these funds. We are trying to summarize the information which is already in the call. And at the beginning of the call, you can see that there are several documents you have to check. These are specifically the call document, but as well pay attention to the model grant agreement, the online manual, and the annotated grant agreement. Those documents are going to explain to you which the difference are between the beneficiary, affiliate entities, associated partners, third parties giving in-kind contribution, and subcontractors. So, I repeat, applicants has to be beneficiaries and affiliate entities, and those are for the European Union. Others can be in another way of association. Those has to be as well legal entities, so that means public or private bodies dealing specifically with fisheries and science. science applied directly to fisheries management. I think that Adolfo went into detail of what we are looking for, so I think it's enough. As I mentioned, we are looking for different people, different groups. The consortium has to be at least of 2 beneficiaries. In this case, it's not affiliated entities. So the 2 beneficiaries has to be from 2 different member states, European Union member states, but then you can have other entities like not affiliated entities, as I mentioned, the associated partners, third parties giving in-kind contribution, and subcontractors. The coordinator of the call has to be, the project has to be in one of the European member states, of course. The differences between these different kind of partners in the consortium regards about the rights and the obligations that they have and how they can receive these funds or not. So beneficiaries and affiliated entities has the same rights and obligations, meaning that they have to be registered in the participant register, and it has to be validated by the validation service, so by REA validation. But the affiliated entities doesn't sign the grant. So this is, you have to be careful what kind of contribution are you going to do to this proposal, and then select what kind of entity are you going to be. And that has to be very clear in the proposal. We are looking for proposals which will be a duration of between 18 or 30 months, because the budget will not allow to be much more longer, but it doesn't mean that you have to be strict with this time. If your proposal is shorter or is longer, you can also apply to that. The same, we are looking for a specific budget, which is between 400,000 or 600,000, but you can propose further or shorter and shorter budget. The idea is that we have a total of 2,600,000 euros, and we will prefer to share it between different proposals than only one. But if it's with the one, it's perfect, perhaps it can be found. So have that in mind, but don't fix on that. And be very clear how you are going to explain your proposal, how you are going to split the money, the budget. It's in the proposal, it's very short, a summary of what we are going to do, but you have to be clear, and we are only going to fund 80% of your proposal. That is also important. So let's see a summary of what we are looking for. And I think if you have to retain something today, this is that we want to improve the scientific knowledge that goes into the fisheries management. So this is one of the important things. The core of your activity has to be related to that. Then the consortium has to be of minimum 2 applicants. Remember all these different kind of wording: beneficiaries, associated, affiliated entities, associated partners, third parties giving in-kind contribution, or subcontractors. So there are many ways of applying to that. But be careful with the structure of the consortium. 2 different member states, European Union member states, and of course the coordination has to be in one of the European Union member states. Finally, the co-funding rate, remember, is going to be at 80% of your proposal. We are, in principle, I'm at funding 7 projects between 400 and 600,000 euros, but you can apply if it's more or less budget, and similarly for the timing. In principle, we are looking for projects about 18 or 30 months, but if you have 12 months project or 34 projects, why not? Be careful with the money and the explanations when you are providing all the explanations, the work packages, what you are going to do with the timeline and the budget. It has to be coherent and harmonized. So, the indicative timeline, of course, what we have launched already, it was the call was launched in 14 November, so last Friday, and we are going to give it open until the 20th of February. It's at 5 o'clock Brussels time, but we strongly recommend to provide, to submit or try to submit the proposal before, even 2 days before, just to avoid any IT issue that prevent you to send the proposal on time. So if you cannot do that 2 days before, just try 1 day, and then you have still some time to do that. From that, it depends on how many proposals we receive, so that is tentative, but our idea is to have the grants signed by the end of the year, so 2025. That means that we will have an evaluation during March, May, and everybody will receive an information letter saying if they have been awarded or if they have been rejected the proposal. And at that moment, we will try to finalize the grant agreement preparation and having the signature. During this preparation of the grant agreement, it may have some slight modifications of your proposal. Mainly will be probably with the indicators or better explain the budget, things like that. Of course, we are not going to modify the proposals that have been awarded. And when the proposals has been awarded and it's invited to do the grant agreement and to sign it, it doesn't mean that it's going to be funded. We have to sign the grant agreement, and then it will be formalized, everything. Let's go to see how the evaluation will be. So this part is very well explained in the call for proposals, but as well in the online manual. I will be more lightly, let's say. So as I mentioned, we will have first, when receiving the proposal, we will have the evaluation committee looking into the admissibility and eligible conditions of each proposal. So be very clear when you are explaining who is doing what and the kind of consortium partner is. Then once this admissibility and eligibility has been finalized, we go to check all the hour requirements, the hour criteria that I will mention later. From that, we will have a scoring. From that score, we will check the priority order. So, of course, the biggest number has a priority order, but when there are matching, we have different criteria as well to determine who is going to be first and who is going to be in the second line or third line. So in that sense, I will mention later the criteria. So have in mind that we will check first the relevance and then impact and finally quality. When there is still matching something between these criteria, we will check if, for example, one proposal it's providing something new which is not in the previous upper scored proposals, or if it's something which is not covered in another way, or if it's providing specific requirements. The proposals, everybody will receive an evaluation result letter with all the information. So all the evaluation panel will mention why this is the scoring. So for those who have been rejected can go for new applications in another call with these proposals to improve. And those who have to go to the grant, perhaps they have something to improve as well during the grant preparation. Let's see then our criteria. As I mentioned, relevance will be the first. When we have matching the scores, we will check into the relevance, then impact, and finally quality. However, all proposals has to have the minimum score, passing score in each criterion. And the criterion, each criterion is a score from 1 to 10. And so the maximum will be 30. And the overall pass scores has to be 21 for the total. But I repeat, each criterion has to have as well the minimum 6. Then what we are looking when we are talking about relevance. So mainly when Adolfo was talking about the activities and the priorities and the objective of the call, that's what we are looking for in the relevance. So be clever and try to explain as much as possible. We don't know your proposal. The evaluation panel doesn't know your proposal. So please be clear, be harmonized, be coherent and consistent, and explain exactly what you want to do and to what you are going to contribute. Then, regarding the impact, you have to mention how you are going to contribute to this impact that you that Adolfo was mentioning at the beginning, but that you are going to boost, and especially how you are going to maximize the impact of your proposal on these specific topics. For example, dissemination and communication will be important, but just remember that, for example, in communication, we are not looking for a website, but we are looking to your organization to provide some information in your website about this project. Finally, we will look into the quality, which it means mainly the implementation, how you are going to implement your proposal. What are the methodologies you are going to do, how you are going to split it in different work packages, the feasibility that it has between the timeline and the budget, what kind of consortium you have, is it feasible, the available knowledge, it's enough to provide this specific proposal. And finally, you have to check as well how the consortium is going to organize themselves and how it's going to solve the problems or the risk that may happen. And with this, I'm finalizing my presentation, and I said you will have all the replies to your questions in these 4 documents I mentioned at the beginning. This is written at the beginning of the call. But of course, we are now ready to reply to your questions. However, the questions which are not going to be replied here will be on the website as well, on the EU and funding tenders. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Blanca. Indeed, all the questions will be published on the FAQ section of the funding and tender portal. And please go and check, basically, before you ask another question, please go and check the FAQs that already exist. We're going to take a few questions now. I think participants have been active in Slido, so we will take maybe 3 questions now, and then we will continue with the rest at the end of the session. So the first question that I can see on the screen is, can other countries than EU participate? And if so, in which status? Maybe Blanca, you want to tackle this one?
Of course, that is the one we were expecting, I think. As I mentioned, the applicants has to be from the European Union member states, but they can be part of the consortium as associated partners, third parties giving in-kind contribution, or subcontractors. As well, subcontractors cannot be the big part of the proposal. It has to be only 30%, maximum 30%. But the reply is yes, they can.
Okay, thank you very much. So maybe also good to mention that the associated partners, if I remember well, they don't get funded. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they don't get EU funding, contrary to subcontractors that you just mentioned. Yeah. I see another question, maybe one that we can take together. So there are 2 questions about the geographical focus, so we can take them together. So the first one is there any geographical focus or preferred region for a project, and can activities take place outside the EU waters? So maybe I start with you, Adolfo, and Blanca can complement.
Yeah, well, what we are talking here is about support knowledge applicable to CFP, to Common Fisheries Policy. And of course, the external dimension of the CFP is also very relevant for us. When you say, for example, take place outside the EU waters, I understand that it is activities of the EU fishing outside waters, or if this is the case, it will not be a problem. But of course, we would like to avoid spending money, for example, in some knowledge which is very relevant for the Chinese fleet in the Pacific area. So we want to be more applied. And regarding geographical focus, there is no preference. So we are really open. We have some internal discussions if we wanted to target and to try to split by sea basins or by regions. And at the end, we decided not to do that because it can be a bit artificial, because we know that there are some differences in the needs, scientific needs in different parts. So we are really open to even with the risk of having all the projects in the same sea basin, we are really open, but we don't have any preferred region.
Super. Thank you very much, Adolfo. I propose that we continue with the presentation of Rocio now about the tips to prepare a good proposal, a successful proposal. And we will take, so I noticed that there were still 2 questions there on Slido. We will take them during the dedicated Q&A session. Thank you for your patience. Rocio, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlotte. And thanks, colleague, for the very good introduction and setup. Now, I'm just gonna share with you some what we call tips and tricks, how to help you navigate the call itself and prepare your proposal, and how you can best do it, and where are the resources, the available resources that can help you to do that in the most successful way. So this is briefly, I'll be talking about EMFAF corporate proposals and some details about the application forms, some good practice, and some available resources to help you in the process. So for particularly for EMFAF call for proposals, I presume you're familiar with the funding and tender portals, but if not, this is a snapshot of how it looks like. It's a portal where you can find funding opportunities for different programs, and they're highlighted, even though the resolution is not that good, but it highlights where you could click to get to the CINEA EMFAF opportunities. And there you can normally find open calls for which that are open for applications, and there you have a number of different useful documents and relevant documents for you to prepare your proposal. You have call documents where you can, if you've already had a look at this call document for this call, you would have seen things like what my colleague Blanca went through already. So what are the eligibility conditions? What are the different applicant and participant categories? What are the documents that are mandatory for you to submit for your proposal to be considered? And you have another very important document as well there, which is the Model Grant Agreement. It's a standard, let's say, for all EU funding programs. And there you have also what we call the Annotated Model Grant Agreement, which includes, it's basically a guideline document with a lot of explanations and guidance on how to interpret the Model Grant Agreement, which includes a number of information. I mean, it's what you'll be signing if your proposal is awarded, and it includes all the obligations and rights and financial obligations even. So it's important for you to also have a look at it and understand. And another important thing for you is the online manual that you can also find there, which it really is the manual for all the IT, for you to help you to navigate this IT system with step-by-step guidelines and description of what you have to do, and hopefully to facilitate you throughout the process of your application for the call. Then a quick reminder, my colleague Blanca already went through it, but just a quick reminder that in the call document, the section 6 covers the eligibility of countries and the consortium composition. So as my colleague Blanca said, in terms of eligibility, the applicants, which are beneficiaries and affiliated entities, must be legal entities, and established in member states. And also be research centers, institutes, university foundations, or scientific bodies. And which is important. What is important here is that they need to be primarily active in fisheries science or in marine science applied to fisheries management. Our colleague Marika will cover this, but beneficiaries and affiliated entities must register in the participant register portal before submitting the proposal. The validation needs to happen before. This doesn't apply to associated partners, subcontractors, and third parties that give in-kind contributions, for which these conditions don't apply. And then in terms of the consortium composition, as my colleague already mentioned, there needs to be at least 2 applicants, and that applies to beneficiaries. So 2 beneficiaries, at least from 2 different EU member states, and the coordinator must be established in an EU member state. Just remember when preparing your proposal that both of these conditions need to be fulfilled to be eligible. A little bit more on the applicants and what are the different categories. Again, you can find a bit more information on this in section 6 and 13 of the call document. Beneficiaries and affiliated countries, which are considered applicants and can get funding. They have to comply with all the conditions, and as I mentioned in the slide before, validation needs to happen before the submission of the proposal. And then we have associated partners that are somehow linked to beneficiaries. They can participate in the action, but they don't have the right to get grant money. And they do not, in this case, need to have to be validated, to be registered. Then you have also the other two categories of subcontractors and third parties. And for subcontracting, maybe to highlight here that associated partners can be subcontracted in very exceptional cases, but this needs to be clearly justified and described and explained in the call document, because as we said before, associated partners are not to get grant money, but if they do so by subcontracting, this needs to be justified. And in any case, you need to all the entities participating in the call, they need to be well identified in as to what category they are, if they are beneficiaries, affiliated entity, associate partners, subcontractors, so you need to clearly identify that in your proposal. In terms of mandatory documents, again, more information on this in section 5 and 10. You have in your application, you need to submit a Form A and a Form B. Form A is what it includes some structured information about your proposal, and in the Form B is where you really explain and develop the activities that you're going to do, present the consortium and all that. Just be mindful that there's a limit of 40 pages for presenting this, and the system will allow you to submit a document that is longer than 40 pages, so you won't get a warning. But whatever is beyond these 40 pages won't be evaluated. So make sure that all the relevant information is within this limit. Just to remind you that you need to include also a list of previous projects, and that'll be included in Form B. And important also for you to remember that the detailed budget table, you don't need to submit it now. It could be useful for you to prepare the financial information, and it would only be requested if you are awarded funding, so at what we call the GAP, the Grant Agreement Preparation stage. Then in section 10 of the call document, some of the mandatory deliverables that we've identified already are a policy brief, which you have to submit at the end of each reporting period, and then there's a project fact sheet that you will have to submit at the beginning, and then an updated version of it at the end. As a general reminder and advice, just look at, use the forms that are provided for you, use the templates and follow all the instructions that are there for you to help you to be successful. Yeah, I mentioned before the model grant agreement. So you will find in this call, but generally for EMFAF calls and others, the model grant agreement, which I said, as I mentioned, is for you to have an idea already of how the grant agreement might look like and what are the different articles that apply, if you are awarded funds. Maybe two things to mention specifically. There is a data sheet at the beginning of the document with some key information on the project, and then there's also Annex 5 for you to have a look on some specific rules that covered security aspects, ethics, and also communication aspects of for the implementation of your project. And then the annotated model grant agreement is the one that has all the sort of guideline information for you to interpret what the different information in the grant agreement implies. Yeah, so they show the full range of provisions that apply to this to the grant agreement that you might sign if you get funding, including all financial aspects. The online manual you can find also in the EU Funding and Tenders portal. This is, as I mentioned before, is some sort of guidelines on step-by-step guidelines on the different IT procedures and steps that you will need to follow for applying for funding, during the evaluation and grant signature, for submitting your proposal as well. Each of the sort of little arrows or boxes that you see there are boxes that you can click on, and they will take you to a page where you can find all the detailed information on how to proceed. And so, like I said, is specific information also to submit your proposal, how to get prepared, and how to actually submit in the system. On the application forms and relevant to the award criteria, again, there's a template for Part A or Form A and Form B that you can already check. They are in PDF in the Funding and Tenders portal. Just remember the Part A or Form A, you fill it up through the system, but for Part B, you download it as a Word template, and then you fill it up and submit it as a PDF. Again, a reminder, if we cannot remind this again, we cannot remind this enough, please keep to the maximum of 40 pages, so to make sure that all the information, relevant information, is there. There are also some instructions and guidelines on how to, in terms of formatting, so use A4 format, Arial, then keep the margins to 15 millimeters. Also important, don't use hyperlinks when you explain your activities and the work that you are proposing. Don't use hyperlinks for information that is essential to explain the project, because it won't be considered. It will be considered outside of the proposal itself. It won't be used for evaluation. So it's important that you make sure that within these maximum pages you have all the information that is relevant for your proposal to be evaluated. Then it's been mentioned already, but a quick reminder that there are some KPIs specifically for EMFAFs, and you can find them, indicators for that in pages 9 and 10 of the call document, but also there's a link there to an Annex 1 of the EMFAF regulation where you can find more. But the idea here is that you consider only those indicators that are relevant to your projects. There's no need to tick them all. So just have a look at them and really consider the ones that apply. And then, if relevant for your proposal, because it includes the participation of non-EU countries, and they will benefit or positively have an impact on them, then indicate this clearly in your proposal as well. And as a general guideline, read always the instructions in the application form and all the information that is already there to help you through the process. A quick mention on the estimated budget on the resources. So you will have a place to describe your work package. And really, at the end of each work package, you have a section where you need to include your budget, your finances associated to that work package. Please note that because we're not asking you to provide a detailed budget table at this stage, at the submission stage, the information there after the work package on your finances is the only way we have to evaluate what's really the value for money, what's really what are really the value for money of your proposal. And as I mentioned before, the detailed budget table is not to be submitted now, but you can use it, and we recommend actually that you use it to prepare this financial information that you would include in the proposal, because if you're awarded, you will be asked to submit it, so you have already prepared it. And it's also a way to make sure that if that happens, there is alignment between the detailed budget table and the financial information in the proposal, because if the detailed budget table is submitted later and it does not align with the information provided in the proposal, the information in the proposal will prevail. Subcontracting cost, the same way you have to identify subcontractors, you have to identify what costs are they incurring and will be benefiting from. There's a 30% limit for that. And maybe some quick good practice point. Just benefit from the form, the guidelines, the structure. This is already there proposed. Keep an eye. Be fully aware of the award criteria. Keep them very much in mind when you prepare your proposal. Explain well what's the starting point of your project. What is it that you are going to do? What is it what you are trying to achieve? Explicitly, it's important that you highlight how what's the additional added value, why, so that will give us an idea why your proposal is deserving funding, and then also cover well the risks and mitigation measures that you plan for the implementation of your project. More on good practices. Check also and try and present clearly in your proposal what are other projects or initiatives at EU level or national level that your project is contributing or is linked to. Make sure that you select the right partners for your consortium. They all bring something to the table, and is ultimately a solid proposal. On the communication aspects, you please make sure also that you have a plan that defined also, as it was mentioned before, what's the main target, what are the main messages, what is the audience, and what is the ultimate objective. As it was mentioned also before, there will be no separate website created for this. I mean, you are to disseminate your project through your own website, so the websites of the participants, and the social media of the participant. Nothing extra is to be created. Ultimately, be concise and to the point. Make sure that the language used is clear, is simple, and is to the point. And another reminder to the 40-page limit. And finally, you can find all the projects that have been funded, like the ones Adolfo mentioned from the call last year, again in the funding and tenders portal, but also other projects from other EMFAF call and other programs. So you get an idea also to what is there already, what's been funded there already, and that could help you to come up with your ideas ideally. You can find also information on this in the CINEA public dashboard. There's a link in the slide. Again, and there you can find projects that have already been provided funding. And this is how the funding and tenders portal web page for this call looks like. You can see on the left a number of different tabs for different aspects that you can consult. We wanted to highlight, there is a tab for partner search announcements. So there you can sort of announce yourself. If you're looking to establish or to be part of a project, you can announce yourself, explain the work you do, and sort of find each other in order to bring a project together and bring a consortium together. And finally, as Charlotte mentioned, all your questions from today and the ones that you might have later until I think it's the 13th of February, when you can submit your questions. Before you do so, please check what are the questions that are already there and that have been answered, because yours might have been answered already. And also, but you can submit your questions through the functional mailbox that is there. And some relevant sources here for the CINEA EMFAF webpage. You will get this as the presentation will be shared, and a direct link also to the funding and tenders portal for this call specifically.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rocio, for this detailed navigation through the call, the important and useful information. I'm sure we will have further questions in the next minute. We will go now directly to the presentation of our colleague from the Research Executive Agency, Marika, who will let you know how to register your organization on the Funding and Tender portal to be able to submit your proposals. So, Marika, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Marika Maria Domenica Cugnidoro from the Central Validation Service that is in REA, the Research Executive Agency of the European Commission. And today I'm going to present you how to register your organization in the participant register in order to obtain a PIC, that is the Participant Identification Code. This is important because it's the registration of your organization in the participant register is necessary for your participation to the call. So this is an overview of what we are going to see today. First of all, I would like to introduce you the Central Validation Service role for your project participation. Then we will move to how to register your organization in the participant register. Then we will see what's next with the legal validation of your entity and the validation of the legal entity appointed representative, that is the LEAR. And then we will see how the communication is carried out with our services. And I will give you, at the end of the presentation, some guidance, documents, links that will be useful for your registration. So what do we do in our service? We verify the legal existence and legal status of the entities against the documents that we request to the participants when we analyze their cases. We validate the appointment of the legal entity appointment representative. We validate legal changes of validated entities in our database. We assess the universal takeover, which is the mergers. And we have other tasks that are linked to the correct registration of your organization in the system. So let's assume that I'm an organization and I would like to participate to a call. What do? I go, first of all, in the Funding and Tenders portal, and I search for the participant register page. And first of all, I need to see whether my organization has already a valid PIC. In this white small window where you see find my organization. If my organization has already a PIC, so it's already registered in the participant register, then I will need to use this PIC. Okay. In case my organization is not registered yet, so then I go a bit down. There is a small window in blue. So I need to click there and register my organization from scratch. By clicking there, I will open a workflow of questions. And in this page, I will need to introduce all the details of my organization. And for this, I will need to have at hand specific documents where I can read, I can check some specific information that I'm asked to provide. So, for example, organization data, some other legal information, and also I need to register also myself that I'm the self-registrant of the entity, and also I can appoint some backups in case, for example, I don't complete the registration in one go, so I can go back and continue the registration, and I can do it as a self-registrant. Also, my backup self-registrant can do the same. So when the registration is completed, then I will get my PIC code, the participant identification code, that will be in a declared status. So it will be a non-valid PIC. But at this point, even though my PIC is not valid yet, I can submit my proposal, my project proposal. So this is the validation process overview. First of all, we already saw we have the registration that is done by you, by the organization that has to register in the participant register and get this PIC, which at the moment is non-valid. So now we are at the second station of this line. We are at the verification and validation of legal data. And this is done on the basis of legal documents provided by you. And the verification and validation of legal data is done by us in the Central Validation Service, of course, with your help. And the communication with you is important because in case we need a specific document to add to the ones that were already provided, we are in constant contact for the correct registration of the organization in the system. Then we have the LIR and the financial capacity assessment if needed. And throughout these stations, the communication is vital between our services and the organization, and is done exclusively via the participant register. So the registration data of your organization is verified by us before the signature of the grant agreement. The legal validation of a participant is done once, so you obtain your PIC and your PIC is validated once, and then you can reuse this PIC for the future participation. The validation of your entity is done by our services on the basis of the supporting document and in accordance to the EU financial regulation and the rules of validation, which are available here in the hyperlink if you need to know more about it. This is an example of the legal validation documents that are requested. This is, for example, a VAT extract, a registration extract, status, and so on. So then we are at the third station. It's the validation of the LIR appointment. So who is the LIR? The LIR is the legal entity appointed representative, and it's the contact person of the Commission services, and well, it's a bridge between your organization and the Commission service. And its appointment is mandatory for all validated participants. Before the validation of the PIC, the main contact point is the self-registrant. Afterwards, with the validation of the PIC, it's mandatory to appoint a LIR. LIR is a person that is appointed by the legal representative of an organization in order to manage the participation of your organization in the EU funded projects that are managed via the EU funding and tenders portal. So here in this slide, we have the list of the roles and duties of the LIR. The LIR notifies the EU, our service, of the change of legal data and legal status. And this is very important because the correct validation of your organization data has an implication in your participation to the call. Then they submit legal and financial documents if required, manage access rights of person in the organization, nominates account administrations and individuals which are authorized to sign the contracts and grant agreements and financial statements. So this is a list of the LEAR documents that we request to the participant for the appointment of the LEAR. So it's the LEAR appointment letter that has to be signed by the legal representative and the LEAR, official proof of identity of both the actors, and then the proof of empowerment of the legal representative, because we have to make sure that the person that appoints the LEAR has the power to do so. And of these three documents, we request a scanned document via the participant register. And the original of the LEAR appointment letter has to be kept in the premises of the organization in case of checks and, well, in case of audits from the Commission. The communication. Again, I wanted to underline the fact that the only channel of communication is the participant register. So it's we don't use Outlook or other means. So the communication is exclusively managed through the participant register. And every time that we request new information from you, we need to contact you. We will send a message via the participant register, and you will get a notification that will look like in this print screen in this page. Then. Problem can happen with the organization of your peak, with the managing of your peak. And in case you lose access to your peak, what happens? We have distinguished two scenarios. In case of declared peak, so when the peak is not valid yet, this can happen when the self-registrant left the organization and there are no backup. So in this case, a new peak has to be created, and our service needs to be informed, because we need to link this non-valid peak to the new one. Then in case of valid peak, this can happen when the LEAR is not available anymore and there are no backups, which are called the account administrators, and new LEAR needs to be appointed. And how to do to get access? There is a procedure that is called the LEAR recovery procedure, and it's accessible via the Funding and Tenders portal. And you have here the hyperlink to get directly to this page. And this is my last slide about some guidance document. You have here the list of documents that will be very useful for the registration of your organization in the participant register. If you have any questions about my presentation, I'm here to help you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Marika, for the presentation of the participant register. It's indeed very important because, well, it's the only entry gate to the Funding and Tender portal for applicants to submit a proposal. So now we will go to the dedicated question and answer session. So please don't forget the hashtag EMFAF 2025 fisheries. There are a number of questions already. I'm also very happy to welcome now in our panel colleagues from the financial sector, Fernando Cardesa and Victoria Palecki. I'm not sure you can see them on screen, but in case there is a financial question, they will appear. Yes, you can see them here. So we will take now questions. We're running a little bit late, but in fact it's because we've taken questions along the session. So we're still very good in time to answer the questions. So we see here on the screen that there are a number of questions that are new and some that we didn't answer before. So we will start with the top one, which is reading the following. Can fishing industry organization involved with scientific work be beneficiary partners on the proposal? So maybe here I can start with Adolfo and then Rocio to answer the question.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's a very, very good question because we are fully aware of the importance of producer organizations and other industry organizations. And in addition, what we are asking in our themes and in our priorities is to create networks and to involve industry also in science. But unfortunately, we have to put the limit somewhere, and the limit is that the producer organization are clearly not the primary activity of this producer organization is clearly not the scientific fisheries. So a solution maybe Rocío can offer other things, but I guess it is quite important to have them on board, especially if you need to pay them for the provision of some services like samples or having observers on board or doing special trials in special areas. If you have to pay them, I will recommend to join them as subcontractors. And if you don't have to pay them and you can cooperate with them, then affiliated entities.
Yeah. Rocío, do you want to complement the information?
No, I think it's a complete answer. Yeah, so think of whether they need to get or not access to funding, and then consider the kind of participation category, but they can be involved, and I think it is clear that they are encouraged to be involved. So it's just finding the way, the right category for them.
Maybe just to clarify, because the terminology is a bit confusing. So in that case, if they receive no funding, this is associated partner and not affiliated entity, just to clarify, because it can be confusing. Yeah. But everything is explained very well in the call in this section that you showed us before, the section 13 of the call for proposals. Good. Then, yes, the second question. If one is already a coordinator of an EMFAF project, can one send another proposal? How about being the institute, so principal investigator, I guess, PI? Rocío, you want to answer?
Yes, the partners can participate can be in several proposals and can submit several proposals, so that is not a limitation. I don't fully understand the second part. How about being the institute of investigation? So I guess the coordinator for both. Am I understanding correctly?
Yeah, this is what I would think also. And if there is a follow-up question, I will invite the person who has asked to put it in Slido. But this is also how I understand it. So there is no limitation, of course. Yeah. Well, resources have to be adapted.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay, we can take another question. Right, can UK agencies be partners on the proposals? Maybe.
That has been already replied.
Yeah, we already replied. So only applicants from EU member states are eligible for funding under this call for proposals. So the only way, that's how it is for the call for proposals in terms of eligibility. What is the likely start of the project? Maybe here, Blanca, you can.
Yeah, that I didn't mention. What we have said is that the grant agreement is likely to be signed by the end of the year. So probably when it's signed, normally it's the first day of the signature, of the counter signature. So let's say that the end of the year will be, but it depends on how the previous phases are going. We cannot have a specific day. However, I think that we can have a specific day if you need to begin on 1st of January. If it's really very clear explained at the beginning in the proposal, we can stay with that.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have another question here. I think it falls more into the remit of Adolfo. So can the proposals involve aquaculture? I think you were quite clear, but maybe you can provide again this clarification.
Yeah, well, it's also a very good question, by the way. And in fact, it's something that it has been a matter of discussion when preparing the call itself. So initially, I would say that aquaculture is a very important part of the CFP. It's also the scientific advice involves a lot of things that are very, very relevant, like, for example, impact on the environment, feed, alimentation, food, blah, blah, blah. It's very important, but this is not the main target of this call. So it is a bit difficult to find some management decisions at EU level that will require this kind of quick scientific advice that we are proposing or we are targeting under this call. So my first invitation would say this is not the target, this is not the main target, and my second reflection would be that there are already other calls. For example, I remember the blue economy that CINEA is launching, which are very, very good and very much targeting aquaculture better than this one. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this, Adolfo. This reminds me that there is, in fact, another ongoing call under the EMFAF program, which will close on the 18th of February. So 2 days before this one, which is tackling a number of activities such as regenerative activities. So yeah, please check the website of CINEA for further funding opportunities that may be applicable for aquaculture. So the next question is, can all the beneficiaries come from the same member state? I think it was also was mentioned in the presentation on several occasions, but Blanca, you can maybe repeat the information.
Okay, the reply is not. No, it's 2 beneficiaries from 2 member states, and the coordination has to be as well from the EU member states.
And if I may add, the reason behind that is because we don't want to overlap with the shared management of EMFAF that could support similar activities on scientific research of gaps under the operational programs for the different member states. So just to avoid the gap of regional projects, this time as a difference from the previous year, we are putting a minimum of 2 different member states.
And that's also indeed the added value of this call compared to the usual EMFAF operations. Thank you very much. We go to the next question. It's a bit small, but I'll try to read. So
It was referring to non-EU member states working in the SFPA, so in the Sustainable Fisheries Partnership Agreement. Thank you. If they can participate, because they are working with, I don't remember exactly the way it was questioned, but it was they work already with the European Union fleet. And they wonder if they can participate as being in the local place.
Well, but my reply here will be very similar to the one on the producer organizations and the sector. We really encourage to create a kind of networkings, but unfortunately we have the limitations of the EMFAF. They cannot be beneficiaries, meaning that if you consider that involving those colleagues from African countries or for whatever country will require to pay them something, then maybe I will encourage you to consider them as subcontractors for a specific service that are going to provide under the project you have in mind. If not, they are more than welcome to participate as associated. Sorry.
And we have the case, I think, of in the current ongoing grants, there are African countries participating as associated partners. Okay, so you could see the full question here that Adolfo just replied. The next question is about, can commercial entities for example, genotyping companies be beneficiaries, or can they only be subcontractors? If included as beneficiaries, it would remove a lot of administrative burden from institutes and would be more cost effective. If I can maybe jump in here and then colleagues can complement. It's not the nature of the entities which matter, because it can be any legal entity, private or public. The question here is the field in which they are active. So if they are primarily active in fisheries science and science, that is what counts in terms of eligibility, additional eligibility criteria, I would say. If you want to, do you want to complement?
No, I am fully aware of the complications from an administrative point of view of having it as a contractors. But at the end of the day, what we want to support is the science itself and not the small details of the execution of the science, which, of course, in the case of genomic is key, is crucial. So I would say, as Charles said, no, they should be involved as a contractor and be aware of the real services that they will provide, because they are, at the end, they are just providing a service but not developing the science.
It's also important indeed to remind, and maybe the financial colleagues would like to say something about it, that, and the colleagues mentioned it, the subcontracting has to be limited in the framework of the proposals. And it shouldn't be, of course, the main part of the project and the action. Okay, so we have a second, another question. Okay, so the first one is, can EU advisory bodies be partners in the proposals? I guess, I mean, we said already, it's the nature of the entities that matters in the framework of the eligibility. So international organizations, for example, are also eligible. You will check, I mean, you will see that in the section 6 of the call for proposals. Well, maybe you want to.
I see exactly the same situation that with the African or the producer organizations. So we know that advisory bodies, they are key for doing things, but we have to see if those advisory bodies are really the main, the primary activity of these advisory bodies is to provide science or not. If we are talking about, I don't know, ICES, for example, yeah, I mean, it's clearly an advisory body which is involved in that. If we are talking about advisory councils, I will have some difficulties.
Okay, thank you very much. What is the maximum number of participants? Is there a maximum number of participants? Maybe is the other way to ask the question.
No, not really. No.
There is no maximum. Regarding how many proposals can we accept, well, that's, I hope not too many, because we have to evaluate all of them. But how many legal entities can be inside a consortium, there is no limit.
Maybe just a reminder that ideally they are all justified. Everyone that is there contributes significantly and has an added value to the consortium and to the work, because that's something that will be evaluated. So you want all the participants to be contributing to the work.
Yeah, indeed, and the money is quite limited. I mean, we said the range of the grants that we expect, it's between 400,000 and 600,000 per project for a relatively short duration. As Adolfo explained, the reason why, that we want results quite soon. So, I mean, you have to adapt the size of your consortium to the resources available, to what you plan to do in your consortium. You can have also, as we said, a different kind of participants, such as associated partners, which will not receive funding. But the most important is that, you know, it makes sense for the science you want to provide and to be efficient. The larger a consortium is, the more administration you will have to do, and the heavier it is for the coordinator. So it's also something for you to assess. Okay, what is the pre-financing applicable and the co-financing rules? So we said in the presentations that the applicable co-funding rate is 80%, but for the pre-financing, maybe I pass the word to our financial colleagues, to Vittoria.
Yes. So indeed, the EU contribution for this call is 80%, and the 40% it's foreseen for pre-financing. However, in order to receive the full pre-financing, there are some conditions to fulfill, like, for example, not to have a weak financial capacity. This only applies to entities requesting 60,000 and more of EU contribution. That an assessment of the financial capacity of the entity will be performed by our colleagues in REA. And then, if by any chance you're one of the entities participating in the call, in the consortium, is deemed financially weak, there are some mitigating measures to be considered. For example, it could be that the pre-financing is reduced partially to mitigate the risk of this weak financial capacity, or it could be that it is agreed within the consortium to have unconditional liability regime, or even multiple reporting periods that would help with the reception of additional pre-financings. And there is also, if there are no options available that the consortium can come to an agreement, there is also the option to replace that weak financial partner. And all this is also explained in the call text in more detail. And you will, at the moment of the CAP, you will receive guidance on how to proceed with this weak financial partner. But yes, indeed, the pre-financing is at 40% if all conditions are met, and it is paid in the beginning of the action. So you would receive it in the first month of your start date. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vittoria. I think we still have some questions to answer. Yes, we have one here. So it's a question which relates to framework contracts that we also have in our remit in the EMFAF unit in CINEA. So the question is about how does this call relate to a framework contract that is dealing with providing advice in support of the Common Fisheries Policies in EU waters. I think if I can start and you interrupt me if I'm saying something wrong. I think the major difference was also mentioned in the beginning by our colleague Adolfo, is that with grants we also leave the possibility of scientists to tell us, what are their needs, what are the immediate needs, and we ask directly the scientific community to come up with ideas. While when we deal with a framework contract and request for services, so we issue contracts, and this is a different type of procedure. This is procurement contract. We usually ask for specific services to be tackled and targeted. also the involvement of the policy DG is much more pregnant also in requests for services and contracts in terms of following the contract management together with colleagues in CINEA. Do you want to add anything?
No. I mean, it's quite relevant in the sense that there can be some of the ideas or proposals that could be related with one or several of the actions already requested under procurements. But the problem is that we don't know what the topics of the proposal will be, so it's very difficult for us to see if there is any relation or interaction. What it is true is that CINEA and DG Mare will be very aware of possible interactions. But at this stage, as Charlotte has said, we are talking about two different issues, absolutely independent, and depending on the topics, we will see if they relate or not.
But that's a good point to take in mind, to keep in mind in case that could be relevant also to have networking or interactions between the two type of actions when they're already up and running. So we keep that in mind also. Thank you for this relevant question. Okay, I see that there are no more questions for the moment. Maybe we can just wait 1 minute because I know there is a delay between us talking and the web streaming. So maybe we can just wait a minute to see if there is another question in Slido. What I can say already is to thank you, the audience, very much for being with us today. Don't forget to fill out the feedback survey regarding this Info Day. We're looking to improve our service and improve the advice and replies that we provide to you. So please answer, and we will take into account your feedback. I would like to thank also all colleagues around the table, all those involved in preparing the call for proposals and preparing the Info Day, including our colleagues from communication here assisting us in the room, Valeria and Nathalie. So thanks a lot to you too. We'll just maybe check if there is. Okay, so there is no further question from Slido. So thanks again for being with us today. All the questions that we've answered today, we will post the answers on the Funding and Tender portal. And if you have further questions, don't forget to check first the Funding and Tender portal and then to send an email to the functional mailbox we indicated in the presentation. Yesterday was World Fisheries Day, so I mean this Info Day is coming at a very relevant moment. We, I think, publicized the Info Day and the call yesterday on this occasion. So we hope that with this call for proposals, you will make a difference with your proposals. So thank you very much again. Have a very nice rest of the day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you and good luck.